Ciao foodies! I'm Alessandra Ciuffo, your Italian-American foodie queen. In this episode of My Go-To, I'm going to take you on a delicious journey through the exciting Italian food scene in New York City. Born in New York and raised between there and Italy, with an Italian dad and an Italian-American mom, I've got the best of both worlds in my blood and on my taste buds. I love sharing the magic of Italian culture and cuisine on social media, and the Italian food scene in New York City is always changing. From the classic spots in Little Italy to the hip new eateries popping up all over town, there's always something delicious to discover.
I'm a regular. I wish I was even more regular.
With all the negative about the village, this is a plus.
So today we are diving into two amazing places that showcase the diversity of Italian cooking in the city. We'll visit an all-day restaurant with a fun twist and gelato, and celebrate the comeback of an icon of New York's Italian food scene.
11 out of 10.
We'll be joined by Italian-American food writer Andrew Cotto, and we'll be indulging in some incredible homemade pasta. It's going to be epic yet feel like family. As we say in Italy, tutto fa brodo. Everything goes in the pot. Before we hit the streets, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Food is the heart and soul of my upbringing. From the age of 3, I was stirring pots of tomato sauce on Sundays with my nonna and taking on fun culinary projects such as homemade mozzarella, salami, and pizza dough with my father. Food connects my family and brings us together. Oh, and here's a little clip of me cooking for my 98-year-old nonna.
Buon appetito, nonna!
Grazie.
In Italian culture, a meal isn't just fuel. It's the highlight of the day. We savor every moment, from that first sip of espresso in the morning to the family dinner table filled with joy and love. All right, let's meet up with Andrew Cotto, the mastermind behind the Italian food and drink magazine Appetito, at our first stop, Travelers, Poets, and Friends.
How many Italian restaurants have you eaten in New York City at this point?
It's a very difficult one to answer.
Throw out a number.
500?
Wow. So right now we're at Travelers, Poets, and Friends. What makes this place so special for you?
For me, the most exciting places in New York are the ones that are opened by Italians in America, representing their regions or their culture or both. This place in particular, I think, is great. There's so many myriad spots to it. You know, it's like an alimentari meets a pasta factory, meets a bakery, meets a cafe. It's a really interesting hybrid of different Italian identities.
Buongiorno ragazzi, eccoci qua.
Salute.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. The coffee is the only thing I make.
And the coffee?
It's true.
This is such a unique establishment in New York. What's the concept behind Travelers, Poets, and Friends?
The feeling inside of us as we were building this place was to call it Casa Mia. So we tried to express the same concept of a place where you can live through a name. And going against the short and sweet, we went for a very long name. Travelers, Poets, and Friends. Travelers, we all are. We've all come here from different places. Friends, we all are. Poets, we're not. But it's an homage to poets, to that way of looking at life in a poetic way. In my life, there was always somebody making pasta somewhere. There was always somebody cooking in the kitchen. Living away from home, I recreated myself that same feeling here in the city. All right, guys, let's finish this coffee and I'll give you a little tour of the place, okay?
Oh, yes.
Andiamo.
As we toured around the place, I realized it's more than your average Italian restaurant. They have a pasta counter selling freshly made pasta, an Italian grocery section, a cafe, a bakery, a lunch spot, a dinner section called Alla Luna, and a gelato shop with fresh gelato. It's basically the ultimate Italian experience.
You can see here, we have a beautiful whole swordfish that just arrived from North Carolina. Starting from the whole fish, we start the process where we're making all our salumi di mare. We serve the fish for crudo and a different preparation.
I know a lot of the restaurants focus on seafood, and obviously you grew up in northern Italy, which I think characteristically is known for being a little bit more hearty or meat dominant, as opposed to southern Italy that's more on the coast and warmer weather. So perché pesce?
Il pesce for me it's another way to express different tradition and recipe from Italy. I like to call my style of cuisine kind of a coastal cuisine. After I met Emanuele with our first restaurant at Osteria 57, I really embraced this philosophy on vegetable and fish and legumes because it's also something that represents us in Italy. And it's a very popular dish right now, our tuna bolognese lasagna. For the bolognese bolognese, you start really in the classic way. So soffritto, you have your celery, carrots, onion, and then you sear your ground tuna meat. You add the red wine. We add some fish stock, and we let simmer for about 2-3 hours.
You have some parmigiano next to this seafood bolognese, tuna bolognese. Breaking the norms of what people think is Italian cuisine.
We're gonna blanch the lasagna sheets in water that contain a little bit of salt as well. You blanch it, and then you put in ice water. Voila. Here we have our bechamel. We really, just a classic way to make lasagna bolognese with meat. So I want you to have a little taste of the...
I was dying, I wanted to try it so bad, he read my mind. Wow, this is incredible. I could eat this on its own, like a soup. As you start breaking down the pieces of tuna, you're seeing that creativity and that part that makes it so unique. Holy cannoli.
Yeah. Holy cannoli.
Holy cannoli.
Oh, yeah, holy cannoli.
Like, you know, talking about how, in general, Italian cuisine, you use what you have. You use the whole entire fish. You use every part. It's not wasteful.
That's correct.
Most Americans don't grasp, you know, that Italians are going to use everything they have in their kitchen, you know, in any way, and that's what makes it so inventive.
How many layers do you make the lasagna?
We make like a 6-layer.
This is a very American point, but this is Parmigiano Reggiano cheese from Emilia Romagna. It is not Parmesan cheese from Wisconsin.
Parmesan. No.
Right?
So different.
All right, so now we have to wait about 25-30 minutes.
We can't wait.
We can't wait, right?
We can grab an aperitivo in the meantime.
That's a good idea.
Let's go to grab an aperitivo. Yeah.
After watching Chef Ricardo work his magic in the kitchen, we're sitting down with YL Deek, the one behind the restaurant's design, for some aperitivo. That's the Italian tradition of pre-dinner drinks and snacks for those of you who don't know.
This place is almost like an onion. It's like you peel back all these layers. You start in the market and you go through the spritz bar and then the panificio, and then you're here and then the speakeasy private room downstairs. What was kind of your inspiration while you were designing the space?
Coming from my background in production design, I like to create little different sections and sets. Like you have your different vignettes, and like you said, it's like peeling the onion, you know? It's like what comes next. So you walk in, you have your cafe, you walk in a little bit further, it's a little bit more cozier where you can sit down, enjoy, drink a cocktail, food. You move in behind the curtains and it's more of a sit-down, elevated experience, dinner, different menu. And if you want to go a little bit further, you can go downstairs.
I mean, you're very focused on people coming in here at any time of the day, you know, spending as much time as they want. Through that process, you're fostering wellness. Right? Is that part of the philosophy here?
Exactly.
The Italian philosophy of wellness is all about the wellness of food. And just like that, we're back for dinner with Emanuele in the private dining area of the restaurant.
Finalmente è tempo di mangiare.
Mangiare e fare un bel brindisi.
Brindisi, salute.
Stop. Let's not do the eye thing, okay? Let's be the first people that abandon that stupid rule where you have to look people in the eye after you
I'll look at
ginger.
you both at the same time.
You know where it comes from.
No, tell us.
No.
So all of the rules that we have around the table and in hospitality come from the 1600 and 1700. And back in those days, the main thing was that other people wanted to kill you.
Like Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, exactly. So the idea of cheering is because when three kings were meeting for the first time and they had a glass each, you never know if the other guy wants to poison you. So if he wants to poison you, he has to put enough poison in his drink that when you cheer, some goes in yours. So the idea of cheering back in the days is about putting our cups together and letting all of our drinks mix.
Wow.
That's why you look at each other in the eyes, because it might be the last time.
I've never heard that.
This is the famous seacutery, which is a charcuterie made with seafood. Yellowtail, swordfish prepared in two ways, and the tuna.
They're imitating classic meat charcuteries, right?
Exactly.
Salami
It really
based, right?
does.
When we first got here to the U.S., how did you find the Italian food in America?
In New York, I've had the best Italian food that I've had anywhere outside of Italy.
Wow.
There's Italian-American food, and there's regional Italian food. In your opinion, what makes them so distinct?
Italy is a very small country. 20 miles can be a very long way. So there was a very regional aspect to every cuisine. Therefore, every person that came here in the 70s and the 80s, he was carrying the tradition of his own town. This job of hospitality that now is like, I don't want to say poisoned, but I will. by corporation. It was born from people that really wanted to cook for you. And these people only knew to cook the cuisine from their area. We serve what we call a coastal cuisine, which is made of ingredients that you can find pretty much all over Italy. It's extremely seasonal. There's a lot of farmed animal, like poultry, lambs. You won't really find like wild boar or deer, because of course, you know, you're talking about the coast, which is also very populated.
So it's just aged 6 days? So there's just a little bit of, you know, this is not crudo.
The texture.
Yeah.
The texture.
The
It's
texture
so smooth.
changes. And you see as you eat it, you get the fat of the fish, and then as you bite into the cabbage, you get that little
crunch.
acidity and crunch.
You get the crunch, the citrus,
And then the
the
citrus.
basil. I love the basil. I got a beautiful piece of basil.
I think of the table as like church. You know, we're communing. You know, we were gathered together, we're breaking bread, so to speak. Right? And this is like, to me, what church feels like.
That's my favorite way to eat. I love that kind of European, thank you, the European style of like, you know, like reminds me of like Spanish tapas, or even in Italy, like condividere, you share things. I can't stand, that's like a deal breaker for me. I cannot go to a restaurant and have simply my meal and that alone. I'm like, I gotta taste a little bit of everything. What do you think is the biggest misconception of Italian cuisine in America?
You go first.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a loaded question.
The biggest misconception of Italian cuisine in America, it's that it's one way.
Yes.
Italian cuisine is not one way. Italian cuisine is like so many different ways. Cooking in Italian is a way of approaching the ingredient, the flavors, and the preparation of the ingredients. You know, there's as many Italian cuisine as many people, cooks or chefs, there are that want to express themselves and give their life to this.
I love that, and I wholeheartedly agree.
I still don't think most Americans understand how actual Italians eat. They think that somehow they're just that fabulous, right? You know, by somehow eating 4 courses at every single meal. You know, that's a wedding. That's a holiday. Right? All the other days of the year, they eat sparsely. I mean, they're very much in a matter of less equals more, really healthy ingredients, eating throughout the day. You know, snacking is a big concept in Italian food. It's becoming very popular now in the US, right? We could talk all day about the food, but obviously the most important thing in the world these days is social media.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Alessandra, on the other hand, being of a different generation, it's much more relevant in your life than it is in say, mine,
Yeah.
you know, ours even. What do you see out there trend-wise, or just in general, you know, reflection on Italian culture in America?
They're getting a more realistic glimpse. I think that social media has interconnected and interwoven the world in a way that it never has before. So instantaneously, you can communicate and see live videos and footage of what someone's seeing, like living and doing in another part of the world.
Come.
Buono. That's been so important because a lot of these like cultural practices that we're talking about, like getting aperitivo, like using these farm-to-table ingredients, going to the mercato and seeing all the fruit and vegetables, Americans are now so hyper aware of that. Whereas before it was, unless you got on a flight and went to Italy, you didn't know that, you couldn't experience it.
The memories instigated by sensory stimulus is most profound with food, right?
What's your sweetest memory?
Of food, of cooking.
My favorite food memory is when I read about every November, it was creating an Italian Thanksgiving for my friends who were relatives were visiting and my new friends in Italy when Thanksgiving rolled around.
I just remember being with my nonna in our very tiny mountain town in Basilicata. It's called Latronico, Paese di Latronico. And it's such a small town. It's one that closes down for lunch every day. The streets are dead silent. All the stores close, everybody goes home for lunch, the kids go home from school, so they leave the windows open. It's like a ghost town. But what you can hear is from the open windows, you hear the ching-ching, you hear the silverware.
Just to make sure nobody's killing anybody.
Yeah, no, but it's that sound of community, that sound of it's lunchtime, that sound of, you know, everyone's going back home to their family and they're having this meal that was prepared with love, with local ingredients that were either from the garden that they picked with their own hands, or they took a passeggiata for 5 minutes and went to the macelleria and got the meat that's in the ragu, and stripping back to the basics, to connection, to community, to family, to originality. That's what's meaningful for me. That's beautiful because it's something, it's dying. We're losing that.
That's why we started this project where we make everything from the morning, from the bread and the croissant until the end of the day, to inspire people to understand that it takes a little effort. Okay, it's not short and sweet. It's travelers, poets, and friends.
What a day. From this morning having coffee, it feels like 3 days ago.
We had breakfast, we had lunch, we had dinner. Now we're having a gelato.
It just shows you like how visceral this place is, and it really transported me.
The gelato's phenomenal.
Incredible.
After saying ciao to Andrew, we're off to Santi, the highly anticipated comeback of Chef Michael White. This culinary legend has earned a whopping 6 Michelin stars from his previous restaurants. But first things first, we're heading straight to the pasta kitchen.
And right down here, Alessandra, we're making garganelli.
Oh, these are beautiful too. Look at the color.
Handmade pasta quills, and this is a pasta that's from Imola, which is in Emilia-Romagna, and it's a pasta that's traditionally tossed either with alla panna, with ragu bolognese, and this is a pettine, and a pettine is a comb, and this is a comb, and these are little reed combs, and this is what gives the grooves on the pasta.
That it really does resemble penne pasta. I know that you grew up in Wisconsin.
Right,
So,
the center of Italian cooking, right?
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the home of lots of amazing cheese. What drew you to Italian cuisine?
Well, I tell you, when I was a young person, the ethnic food of choice is either Italian or Cantonese food. Now there's everything. There's Japanese and Latino, everything. But so when we were going out, we would always go out for pizza or pasta, and so that's really where the love affair of pasta came from, the Italian kitchen. And I went to work at Spiaggia in 1991. After starting and working at Spiaggia, I really began this love affair with Italian cooking. I really wanted to go to the source and learn more about it. In the early 93, I went to Italy, and I started as a stagiaire at San Domenico in Imola, which is outside of Bologna. And from there on, I just started working around Italy, different spots.
What's your favorite part of Italy?
Oh, I would have to say Emilia-Romagna for sure. This is the prep kitchen, absolutely. The butchers. This is where the wine room is.
That's awesome. Very
This
cool.
is New York City. You have to
I know, you gotta be crafty.
utilize every single space inside the kitchen.
That's awesome though. Are all the pastas on the menu handmade?
Everything is handmade. All of our pastas start out with kind of this trinity of,
Oh my gosh.
of a
is
little,
that like,
but it's thinly sliced garlic. We don't mince our garlic, because when you mince it, you know, this is all the same thickness, so it all cooks at the same time.
yes.
In the sense that I'll take just a little bit of sepia. Literally, I'm just warming this up a little bit, right? Look at that. And I didn't do anything. It's not magic.
It already smells so good. It
Right.
shows you. It's literally olive oil, salt, a little chili pepper flakes, and garlic, and that's it.
There's the magic, right? But you know what it is? It's procuring the right ingredients and knowing where they come from, right? They take 3 or 4 minutes. We steam very quickly, but these are raw. We put them in a blast chiller. And what we're gonna do, so these are all floating to the top. I'm just gonna dump them right in. And literally just this natural starch, I'm just gonna bring these together a little bit. So we're gonna drizzle just a little bit over here, a little bit of olive oil, right? And then we have some toasted breadcrumbs for a little bit of texture.
Getting a little bit of the sughetto. Wow. Oh my gosh. It's like an explosion of flavors in my mouth, but I can taste all the elements. I taste the basil. I taste the little drop of lemon juice that you added at the end that brightens it up. The fresh herbs, the parsley, the basil, the tomatoes, the perfectly cooked little squid calamaretti. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's delicious. What does Italian cuisine mean to you?
Because I grew up in America, non lo prendo per scontato. I don't take it for granted. That's like, you know, whether it's Thomas Keller at the French Laundry, whether it's Rick Bayless doing, you know, this amazing Mexican cuisine from Mexico. It's the same thing for me. When I first started in the early 90s, I was really processing all this and really developing what I like to call my taste memory or my palate. So I really understand when I came back to America, it's impossible to cook Italian food from Italy if you've never been there and absorbed it. People have this idea of what we call Italian-American cuisine, which is its own subset of cooking, but it's not Italian, it's Italian-American. There's a lot of good Italian cooking in New York City. Each and every one of us does it in a different fashion. We're very much hyper-focused on how we make our pastas and staying very, very true to that ethos of handmade pastas and the method and technique behind it. We're very fortunate in New York and the United States to have so many different types of Italian cuisine and very focused, whether it's seafood focused or focused on Emilia Romagna or Puglia or the south of Italy, Roman cuisine, and all the subsets of pizza now. So it's from when I started to right now, it's grown tenfold from where we started with Italian cooking. Tomatoes are probably one of our hardest things to get because in Italian cuisine, tomatoes are so important to us. Those are my must-haves. Great tomatoes, beautiful olive oil for finishing, not just cooking, but for finishing, and then obviously all the product that comes behind it.
I know that you have quite a few stars under your belt. What do you think, in your eyes, what makes a Michelin star restaurant?
Wow, we start cooking, we're cooking first for ourselves and for the team and for our clientele more than anything. So when we set out to do a restaurant such as this, I like to say truffles and blue jeans. So somebody told me that years ago.
Truffles and what?
Truffles and blue jeans. So I want to eat
that.
this type of food, but I don't want to be dressed like that. So
that was my question, because the first time I dined here, I noticed it's kind of this essence of quiet luxury.
Cool, right?
It's cool, it's laid back, there's no tablecloth.
No tablecloths. It's just a relaxed atmosphere, whether you're in a sweater or a shirt. Come one, come all. I want everybody to eat and enjoy this type of cooking, and the conviviality of the Italian cuisine is not being dressed up. It's about sharing and hosting wonderful meals and great conversation. Right now, the evolution of Italian cuisine is really getting back to roots. When I was a young person, there was no internet to go in and to delve in, and the AI, and so a lot of young people that are, they have this advantage over chefs such as myself in the beginning because of social media, because of the internet, and everybody knows what a cacio e pepe was. And so it's very much different than when I started. So the evolution of Italian cuisine, not just Italian, but all types of cuisines, are just growing at a breakneck pace because of social media, the internet. Young people such as yourselves, they're getting other young people involved and excited about Italian cooking or cooking in general.
As we wrap up our foodie adventure, I am so excited about the future of Italian cuisine in America. From the authentic flavors brought over by Italian-born chefs and restaurateurs, to the innovative takes on Italian cuisine by American chefs who've fallen in love with the food. It's this beautiful blend of tradition and innovation that makes the New York food scene so incredibly special. If you've enjoyed this tasty tour of NYC's Italian food scene, then be sure to follow me on Instagram at Flavors by Alessandra and subscribe to Localish for more foodie adventures. One of my favorite things about Little Italy is when they have the lyrics to one of my favorite songs, Volare, and each street has a little bit more. So it's like, volare, oh, cantare, oh.